Horror Nights presents 5 creepy and disturbing true high school horror stories. Number 5. The Murder of Britney Eckert. On the afternoon of May 17, 2016, in a makeshift shelter near Sacramento, California, a group of teenagers, 3 girls and 4 boys, all between the ages of 14 and 16, were hanging out and drinking vodka after school. At one point, 15-year-old Ryan Orton and his 14-year-old girlfriend, Britney Eckert, got into a fight. Without warning, Orton pulled out a 6-inch blade and started stabbing Eckert in the chest and neck as their friends watched on. None of them tried to stop the attack. In fact, they cheered him on. After Eckert was clearly dead, they all said it was cool, and one of them even made a joke about her being dead tired. They also took pictures of Orton covered in blood, and they took selfies with the dead body. When it was time to go home, they left the body where it was and didn't tell anyone about it. In fact, several of them came back over the next couple of days to look at the body in various states of decay. Eventually, they stopped going because the smell got so bad. Meanwhile, Eckert's parents filed a police report a few days after she went missing. It was not unusual for Eckert to leave home for a few days, but she had always returned. The police also thought that Eckert would return home alive at any time. Both were proven wrong when her body was finally found by some people who went fishing in the area 10 days after she was murdered. Orton was arrested, and he freely admitted to the murder. The detectives asked if he felt guilty, and Orton replied, "For what?" The pictures that were taken from the night of the murder were used at his trial, where Orton rolled his eyes during the victim's statements of grief. He was found guilty, and he was sentenced to life in prison. The other people who witnessed the murder were not charged, despite a lot of public pressure to do so. Number 4. The New Teacher. 2 weeks after school started in 1956 in Buffalo, New York, 15-year-old Rachel Turner went missing after she left school for the day. 10 days later, 16-year-old Gretchen Rader, also a student at South Park High School, disappeared after leaving the campus. Then, 2 days after that, another female student, 14-year-old Irene Mason, vanished without a trace. Of course, the students and their parents were completely panicked. Classes were put on hiatus, and one of the biggest police investigations in Buffalo's history was launched. After extensive interviews, they had a person of interest, a history teacher named Mark Eidelberg. He was seen with 2 of the girls shortly before they went missing. Eidelberg had just started at the school that year after being transferred from a school in nearby Niagara Falls. No one at South Park knew him well, not even the principal who just interviewed him over the phone. However, the principal did call his references, and they were all glowing. When the police went to interview Eidelberg at his apartment, no one opened the door, and the police made the decision that the girls might be in danger, so they broke the door down. Inside the apartment, they found the girls. They were all dead, and they had been embalmed. One was sitting on the couch in the living room. One was sitting at the kitchen table, and another one was in the bed. The police also looked in the freezer and found that it was full of butcher-wrapped meat. They might have ignored the meat had there not been a round, head-shaped package in the freezer as well. The police unwrapped the body, and it was a man, but his identity was a mystery. The police played a citywide be-on-the-lookout alert for Mark Eidelberg. The problem was that the apartment didn't contain a single picture of Eidelberg, and since he was new at the school, they also had no pictures of him. To solve that issue, the lead detective called in a favor from the Niagara Falls Police Department, and they went to Idlebird's old school and got some yearbooks. A squad car brought them over to the Buffalo Police Department, and when the lead detective saw the picture of Idlebird, he was stunned. Idlebird was the body in the freezer. The police concluded that the murderer, whose identity is still a mystery, killed Idlebird, chopped up his body, and then took over his life. The man then used his position as a teacher to kidnap the girls and murder them. Number 3. The rivalry that went too far. There are many famous high school football rivalries in the state of Texas, but none of them are quite like the one between El Campo and Bay City. Their rivalry dates all the way back to 1911, and the darkest moment in their history came in October 1984. Sadly, 2 weeks before they were set to play, El Campo's star wide receiver, 17-year-old Nicholas Crichton, was killed in a gruesome drinking and driving accident. He was thrown through the windshield, and he looked so bad that it was a closed-casket funeral. The school was looking forward to starting on the path of healing by taking on Bay City and trying to win in memory of their fallen teammate. Part of that was having a pep rally to get ready for the game. The pep rally started off well, but then the school's mascot pushed out a large wooden box that looked like a present out onto the stage. "Oh, what's this?" the quarterback said into the microphone as he saw the present being wheeled out. No one on the stage had any idea what the gift was, but assumed it was part of the rally. The mascot motioned the quarterback over and that he should pull the ribbon. With the ribbon in hand, the quarterback and the crowd counted down from 3 as the mascot made his way out of the gym. When the ribbon was pulled, the front of the box fell open, and inside was the exhumed, mangled, and decaying body of Nicholas Crichton, pinned to the back of the box. The students started screaming and running for the doors. Many of them didn't notice that Bay City Rules was written inside the box on his chest. The police came to the school and discovered that the student who wore the mascot costume was handcuffed to a pipe in the janitor's closet. He said that he was attacked before he got into the costume, and when he woke up, he was handcuffed. After the disturbing incident, Crichton's body was returned to his grave. The police investigated if it was students or Bay City football fanatics who were responsible for the sick prank, but they couldn't find any definitive proof as to who dug Crichton up and put his body in the box. As for the game, Bay City won 37-13. Number 2. The School Play. Kyle Wick and Renee Orville of Atlanta, Georgia, started dating in grade 9, and one passion they bonded over was their love for the theater. Every year they were cast in the school play, and in May 2007 they were cast in the leads in the school's production of Romeo and Juliet. The plays were going well until the very last performance. Before the show, Wick and Orville were hanging out in Wick's room, and that's when Orville saw an acceptance letter from the University of North Carolina School of the Arts. This was a surprise to her, because as a couple, they had agreed to go to Northwestern University together. That's when Wick decided to break the news. He had hoped to at least last the rest of the school year before telling Orville that he was going to a different school, and he also thought they could use the time apart to be single. When Wick broke the news, he expected Orville to scream or cry, but she did neither. Instead, she calmly said that it was time to go to the play. As they drove there, Wick kept asking Orville if everything was okay or if she wanted to talk, but she said they would do so after the play. They got ready in their own dressing room and then hit the stage in front of a packed audience. The first act went off without a hitch. Then, in the second act, Orville did something she hadn't done in any prior shows. She picked up a glass that was on the table. Then, without warning, Orville threw the liquid that was in the glass in Wick's face. He started screaming and reached for his face, and then his hands felt like they were on fire as well. Orville calmly walked off the stage, and the audience watched Wick writhe in pain, unsure if this was part of the show. Only the drama teacher, who was also the director, knew something was wrong, and he ran to the stage to help Wick. Wick was taken to the hospital, while Orville was arrested. The liquid in the cup was sulfuric acid. As a result of the attack, Wick was permanently disfigured, and he never attended university. His whereabouts now are unknown, but it is believed that he lives in his parents' home and hides from society. Orville, on the other hand, was sentenced to 5 years in prison. She is now happily married with 3 children. Number 1. Tyrone Easton's Last Day. When Tyrone Easton of Baltimore, Maryland, entered the teaching profession in 1973, he was 23 years old, and he was driven and enthusiastic. He loved English literature, and he was looking forward to sharing his passion with young people for years to come. However, as the years dragged on, he became much more disillusioned with the profession. None of the students cared about the things he taught. Then 2 things happened in 2015, the year that Easton was set to retire. The first was that in December, during his first period, he had gotten the most obnoxious, arrogant, and downright smug student in his entire 42-year career, and that was 15-year-old Micah Ellington. Ellington never did any of his homework, openly talked with other students, and even answered his phone. Any time that Easton tried to get him to stop or discipline him, Ellington would figure out a way to humiliate him in front of the class. As a result, no one respected Easton, and the class felt like a colossal waste of time. Easton hated the fact that that class was one of the last ones he would teach. He was hoping that just once he'd get a few kids in the class who appreciated the beauty of Alfred Tennyson or Robert Frost, but they all just played on their phones while he talked. Then on March 23, Easton learned that he had an aggressive form of prostate cancer, and he had 3 months to live. After getting the diagnosis, Easton went to the school and sat at his desk for his first period class. Everyone filed in, and Easton didn't say anything. He just stared at the class. Ellington took the opportunity to mock the teacher, but Easton didn't respond. Ellington then walked up to the desk, put his hands on it, and got right in Easton's face. No one remembers what Ellington said. Instead, they just remember him screaming because Easton pulled out a knife from under his desk and he stabbed it through Ellington's hand, pinning him to the desk. Easton then stood up, held up another knife, and said, "Unless you want to help me kill him, you better run." The students flipped over the desks and chairs trying to get out. When they did, Easton locked the doors behind them. When the police got into the room 5 minutes later, Ellington was dead, and the classroom was covered in more blood than the first responders had ever seen. An autopsy was performed, and Ellington had been slashed at least 207 times. Easton was arrested, but he died a month after the murder. Subscribe for more.